The rain hammered against the windows of the downtown community center as Sophia Wells hurried between easels, helping her evening art students clean their brushes. Her worn sneakers squeaked on the linoleum floor, and she could feel the familiar ache in her lower back from standing all day. This was her third job today, after teaching elementary school art classes and working a lunch shift at the diner. "Miss Wells, will you be here next week?" asked Marcus, an elderly man who attended her classes religiously. His weathered hands shook slightly as he packed away his watercolors. Sophia forced a smile, though her heart clenched. "Of course, Marcus. I'll see you Tuesday." She couldn't tell him that the community center might close her program next month due to funding cuts. She couldn't afford to lose this job, even though it only paid $40 per session. After the last student left, Sophia locked up and walked to her car, a 15-year-old Honda with a temperamental engine. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate, Christina. "Rent notice came today. We're 2 weeks behind. Landlord says eviction notice next." Sophia leaned against her car door and closed her eyes. Between her student loans, her mother's medical bills, and basic living expenses, she was drowning. Her art degree felt more like a burden than a blessing most days. She dreamed of having her own gallery, of making art that mattered, but those dreams seemed increasingly impossible. Her phone rang, interrupting her spiral of worry. "Hello? Sophia Wells?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Yes, this is she. This is Victoria Chen from the Metropolitan Art Foundation. We received your application for the Emerging Artist Grant." Sophia's heart leaped. The grant was worth $50,000 and could change everything. "Yes, I've been waiting to hear back. I'm sorry to inform you that while your portfolio was impressive, we've selected another candidate. However, we'd like to invite you to our annual charity gala tomorrow evening. Several patrons will be there who specifically requested to meet you after seeing your work." The hope that had flared quickly dimmed. Another rejection, wrapped in a consolation prize. "I'm not sure I can afford the event. It's complimentary for invited artists. The dress code is formal. The event starts at 7 at the Fairmont Hotel." After hanging up, Sophia stared at her reflection in her car window. A charity gala meant rich people who might buy her art or offer commissions. It was worth a shot, even if she'd have to borrow a dress from Christina. The next evening, Sophia stood in the opulent ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel, feeling completely out of place. Her borrowed black dress was elegant but slightly too tight, and her shoes were uncomfortable heels she'd bought at a thrift store. Around her, San Francisco's elite mingled in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, champagne glasses glinting in the chandelier light. She'd positioned herself near her small display of paintings, hoping someone might show interest. So far, she'd had polite conversations with a few patrons, but no sales. Her stomach growled audibly, reminding her that she'd skipped dinner to afford the taxi here. "The city series is striking," a deep voice said behind her. Sophia turned and found herself looking up at a man who commanded attention without trying. He was tall with dark hair that looked effortlessly styled, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His eyes were an unusual shade of gray-green, sharp and calculating as they studied her paintings. "Thank you," she managed, trying to place him. His face was familiar in that way that suggested she'd seen it in magazines or newspapers. "You capture the loneliness of urban life beautifully. This one especially." He gestured to a painting of a woman silhouetted in a lit apartment window, the city sprawling dark around her. "There's something haunting about it." Sophia felt a flutter of pride. Someone finally understood what she was trying to convey. "That's exactly what I was going for. The isolation we feel even when surrounded by millions of people." "Damien Cross," he said, extending his hand. Sophia's breath caught. Everyone in San Francisco knew that name. Damien Cross, the 32-year-old tech mogul who'd built his startup into a billion-dollar empire before age 30. His company revolutionized data security, and his personal wealth was estimated in the billions. "Sophia Wells," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm and warm, and she felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. The artist herself. "I was hoping to meet you." His smile was confident, almost predatory. "Walk with me." It wasn't really a request. Sophia found herself following him to a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the crowd. Up close, he was even more intimidating, with sharp cheekbones, and an intensity that made her feel like she was being evaluated. "I have a proposition for you, Sophia Wells," Damien said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "If it's about buying a painting, I should mention they're not cheap," she said, trying to inject some confidence into her voice. His mouth quirked in what might have been amusement. "I'm not interested in your paintings. I'm interested in you." Before Sophia could respond to that unsettling statement, he continued, "I need a wife, temporarily." Sophia stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "My grandfather established a trust fund before he died. $30 billion that becomes mine when I turn 33. But only if I'm married." Damien's expression was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. "I turn 33 in exactly 30 days. That's medieval," Sophia managed. "My grandfather was old-fashioned. He believed marriage would make me more responsible, more committed to family values." Damien's jaw tightened slightly. What he didn't anticipate was that I'd have no interest in giving up my freedom for anyone. Sophia's head was spinning. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've done my research on you, Sophia. You're drowning in debt, working 3 jobs, and about to lose your apartment. You need money, and I need a wife. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement." The casual way he'd investigated her life made her skin crawl. "You had me investigated? I'm a careful man. $30 billion requires careful planning." He stepped closer, and she caught a whiff of expensive cologne. "Here's what I'm offering. Marry me for 30 days, play the part of the devoted wife, and walk away with $5 million when we divorce." Sophia's knees went weak. $5 million. It was more money than she could even properly comprehend. It would solve every financial problem she'd ever had, pay for her mother's treatments, fund her art career for life. "This is insane," she whispered. "Is it? You get financial security for the rest of your life. I get my inheritance. We both get what we need." "What exactly would I have to do?" "Live in my house, attend social functions as my wife, convince my lawyers and business associates that we're genuinely in love." His eyes traveled over her face with clinical assessment. "You're perfect for the role, actually. Beautiful enough to be believable, but not so polished that people will think you're a gold digger I hired." The backhanded compliment stung, but Sophia pushed past it. "And after 30 days? Clean divorce. Non-disclosure agreement. You disappear from my life forever, $5 million richer." Sophia's mind raced. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just 30 days of your life." She thought about Marcus and her other students who might lose their art classes, about her mother's mounting medical bills, about Christina, who'd been covering more than her share, of rent for months, about the dreams she'd had to put on hold indefinitely. "I need time to think about this." Damien pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. Bank account balance, $1,237. Credit card debt, $18,000. Student loans, $42,000. Your mother's medical bills, $6,000 and counting. How much time do you really need? The invasion of privacy should have made her angry, but instead, it made her desperate. He was right. She was drowning, and he was offering her a life preserver. "If I say yes, when would this happen?" "Tomorrow. I have the marriage license ready and a judge on. Stand by." "Tomorrow?" Sophia's voice cracked. "I told you I'm a careful planner. The clock is ticking." Sophia looked around the ballroom at the wealthy patrons who'd barely glanced at her art all evening. She thought about going home to her cramped apartment, to Christina's worried face and another stack of bills on the counter. "5 million," she said quietly. "5 million," Damien confirmed. She took a deep breath, knowing she was about to change her life irrevocably. "Okay, I'll do it." Damien's smile was sharp and satisfied. "Excellent. My driver will pick you up at 10 tomorrow morning. Bring whatever you need for a month." As he walked away, leaving her standing alone in the corner of the ballroom, Sophia realized she was shaking. In less than 24 hours, she would be Mrs. Damien Cross, fake wife to one of the most powerful men in the country. She had no idea what she'd just gotten herself into. The black Mercedes pulled up to Sophia's apartment building at exactly 10 o'clock the next morning. Through her window, she watched a uniformed driver step out and approach her door. Her single suitcase sat by the entrance containing everything she thought she'd need for the next 30 days of her life. Christina emerged from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, still in her pajamas. "I still can't believe you're doing this. What if he's a serial killer?" "Serial killers don't usually offer $5 million, Sophia replied, though her stomach was churning with nerves. "Besides, he's too famous to make me disappear without questions." The knock at the door made both women jump. Sophia took a deep breath, grabbed her suitcase, and opened the door to find the driver waiting patiently. "Ms. Wells? I'm James. Mr. Cross sent me to collect you." The ride to Damien's house took 20 minutes through San Francisco's affluent neighborhoods, ending at a massive modern mansion perched on a hill overlooking the bay. The house was all glass and steel, stark and imposing against the morning sky. James carried her suitcase to the front door, which opened before they could knock. Damien stood in the doorway, dressed casually in dark jeans and a white button-down shirt that somehow made him look even more intimidating than his tuxedo had. "Right on time," he said, stepping aside to let her enter. "I appreciate punctuality." Sophia stepped into the foyer and tried not to gape. The house was spectacular, with soaring ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, and art that probably cost more than most people's homes. Everything was pristine, cold, and perfectly arranged. "Welcome to your new home," Damien said, watching her reaction. "For the next 30 days, anyway." A woman in her 50s approached them, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a professional smile and comfortable shoes that suggested she managed the household. "This is Mrs. Patterson, my housekeeper. She'll show you to your room and help you get settled." "Room?" Sophia asked. "I thought we were supposed to be married." "We are. The ceremony is this afternoon, but that doesn't mean we need to share a bed." His tone was businesslike, as if they were discussing a corporate merger. "You'll have your own suite. We'll maintain separate spaces for privacy." Relief and disappointment warred in Sophia's chest. She followed Mrs. Patterson up a sweeping staircase to a guest suite that was larger than her entire apartment. The room had its own sitting area, walk-in closet, and bathroom with a tub big enough for 2 people. "Mr. Cross has arranged for some appropriate clothing," Mrs. Patterson said, opening the closet to reveal an array of designer dresses, casual wear, and formal attire. "If anything doesn't fit properly, we can have alterations done immediately." Sophia ran her fingers over a silk blouse that probably cost more than her monthly food budget. "This is too much." "Mr. Cross is very thorough in his planning, Mrs. Patterson said with a knowing smile. "Lunch will be served at noon. The ceremony is at 3. After Mrs. Patterson left, Sophia sat on the edge of the massive bed and tried to process what was happening. In a few hours, she would be married to a man she'd met yesterday, a man who saw her as a business transaction. Nothing more. Her phone buzzed with a text from Christina. "How's the billionaire's lair?" Before she could respond, there was a knock at her door. Damien entered without waiting for permission, carrying a small velvet box. "The ring," he said, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond that caught the light and threw rainbows across the wall. It needs to look convincing. He took her left hand and slid the ring onto her finger. It was heavy and cold, beautiful but impersonal. As his fingers brushed against hers, Sophia felt that same electric jolt from the night before. "Perfect fit," he said, but his voice was slightly rougher than before. "My assistant did her research. Your assistant picked out my engagement ring? Rebecca is very efficient." Damien's hands lingered on hers for a moment longer than necessary. She also arranged for a photographer to document the ceremony. "We'll need pictures for social media and the lawyers." The casual mention of social media made Sophia's head spin. "People are going to know about this?" "Of course. A secret marriage would raise suspicions. We'll announce it as a small, intimate ceremony after a whirlwind courtship." He studied her face. "You look pale. Are you having second thoughts?" Sophia looked down at the massive diamond on her finger. "No, this is really happening. It's happening." "And Sophia." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "For the next 30 days, you're mine. In public, in private, in every way. That matters to the outside world. I need you to remember that." The possessive tone in his voice sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. Before she could analyze her reaction, he was gone, leaving her alone with her racing heart and the weight of the ring on her finger. The ceremony was brief and sterile, conducted in Damien's study by a judge who seemed more interested in his fee than the significance of the occasion. Sophia wore a simple white dress from her new closet, and Damien had changed into a charcoal gray suit. The photographer captured every moment, from the exchange of vows to their first kiss as husband and wife. That kiss caught Sophia completely off guard. She'd expected something perfunctory, a quick peck for the cameras. Instead, Damien's lips were warm and firm against hers, his hand cupping the back of her neck as he pulled her closer. For a moment that stretched too long, Sophia forgot this was all pretend. When they broke apart, Damien's eyes were dark and unreadable. "Very convincing," he said quietly, but something in his voice suggested he was convincing himself more than her. That evening, they had their first test as a married couple. Damien's business partner, Richard Hawthorne, and his wife came for dinner. Sophia had spent the afternoon researching Damien's company and memorizing details about their supposed courtship. "You two seem so happy," Mrs. Hawthorne gushed over the main course. "It's wonderful to see Damien finally settling down. We were beginning to think he was married to his work." Sophia smiled and placed her hand on Damien's arm. "He's been very romantic. Just last week he surprised me with a picnic in Golden Gate Park." It was a lie, part of their fabricated history, but Damien played along perfectly. "I wanted to recreate our first date," he said, covering her hand with his. "Sophia brings out my sentimental side." The casual touch sent warmth shooting up Sophia's arm. She found herself studying his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled slightly when he smiled. When he turned to meet her gaze, she forgot to look away quickly enough. "How did you know she was the one?" Richard asked. Damien's thumb traced across Sophia's knuckles, a gesture so intimate it made her breath catch. "She saw something in my art collection that no one else had ever noticed. She understood the emotional connection I was trying to make." His eyes never left Sophia's face. "It's rare to find someone who truly sees you." Sophia's heart stuttered. They were supposed to be acting, but the sincerity in his voice made her wonder if some part of him meant it. After their guests left, Sophia helped clear the dishes, needing something to do with her hands. Damien rolled up his sleeves and joined her in the kitchen, despite Mrs. Patterson's protests. "You don't have to help," Sophia said, surprised by his presence. "I'm not completely helpless," he replied, echoing her words from their first night. "Besides, married couples do dishes together, don't they?" They worked in companionable silence for a while, bumping shoulders occasionally in the narrow space between the counter and the sink. When Sophia reached for a high shelf, Damien moved behind her, his chest against her back as he retrieved the item she couldn't reach. "Got it," he said, but he didn't move away immediately. Sophia could feel the warmth of his body, smell his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. When she turned in the small space, they were face to face. Barely, inches apart. "Thank you," she whispered, very aware of his hands still braced on either side of her against the counter. "Sophia," he said, her name sounding different in his deep voice. His eyes dropped to her lips, and she felt herself leaning toward him. Plates slipped from her soapy hands and shattered on the floor, breaking the spell. They jumped apart, both breathing hard. I should go to bed," Sophia said, not meeting his eyes. "Long day tomorrow." "Yes," Damien agreed, his voice rough. "Good night, wife." As Sophia hurried to her room, she couldn't shake the feeling that their fake marriage was becoming dangerously real, at least for her. And the way Damien had looked at her in the kitchen suggested she might not be alone in that feeling. 2 weeks into their marriage, Sophia had fallen into a routine that felt surprisingly natural. She worked on her art in the mornings using the studio Damien had set up for her in the house's sunroom. Afternoons were spent at various social functions, as Damien's wife. And evenings were the most dangerous time, when they were alone together, and the pretense felt less like acting and more like living. The inheritance investigation was going smoothly. Damien's lawyers had interviewed them separately and together, and all signs pointed to the trust fund being released on schedule. Everything was going according to plan, except for the growing tension between them that neither wanted to acknowledge. Sophia was putting the finishing touches on a new painting when she heard voices in the foyer. Through the sunroom's glass walls, she could see Damien speaking with a tall, elegant woman with platinum blonde hair and sharp features. Even from a distance, Sophia could sense the tension between them. "Sophia?" Damien called out, his voice tight. "I'd like you to meet my sister, Victoria." Victoria Cross-Hampton looked like she'd stepped out of a society magazine. Her designer suit was impeccable, her makeup flawless, and her smile cold as Arctic wind. She extended a manicured hand to Sophia with obvious reluctance. "The new Mrs. Cross," Victoria said, her tone suggesting she was examining a particularly distasteful insect. "How quaint." "Victoria," Damien warned, but his sister was just getting started. "I have to say, Damien, I'm surprised. She's not your usual type at all." Victoria's eyes traveled over Sophia's paint-stained clothes and casual ponytail. "Though I suppose that's the point, isn't it? Grandfather would have loved this little charade." Sophia felt her cheeks burn. "I'm sorry. What exactly are you implying?" "Oh, nothing at all," Victoria said with false sweetness. "I just find it fascinating that my brother, who's never shown interest in marriage, suddenly finds true love just weeks before his inheritance deadline. What a remarkable coincidence." "Victoria, that's enough," Damien said, stepping closer to Sophia in a protective gesture that felt genuine. "Is it, though? Because I've done some digging into your new wife's background. Struggling artist, drowning in debt, working multiple jobs to make ends meet. It's almost like a fairy tale, isn't it? Poor girl meets rich prince and all her problems disappear." Sophia's hands clenched into fists. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough," Victoria replied smoothly. "I know that you're getting exactly what you wanted out of this arrangement. The question is, what happens when the 30 days are up and you've gotten your payout?" The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. Victoria knew. Somehow she'd figured out their arrangement, and now she was wielding that knowledge like a weapon. "I think you should leave," Damien said, his voice deadly quiet. "Oh, I'm going, but I'll be watching, dear brother. And when this little performance falls apart, I'll be there to pick up the pieces." Victoria turned to Sophia with a smile that was all teeth. Enjoy it while it lasts, sweetheart. Men like Damien don't actually fall for women like you. After Victoria left, the house felt heavy with tension. Sophia stood frozen in the foyer, her sister-in-law's words echoing in her head. Men like Damien don't actually fall for women like you. Sophia, Damien began, but she held up a hand to stop him. She knows, doesn't she? About our arrangement. Damien ran a hand through his hair, his composure finally cracking. Victoria has always been jealous of my relationship with our grandfather. She's been looking for ways to undermine me since we were children. That's not an answer. She suspects, but she can't prove anything. Our lawyers are satisfied with the marriage. That's all that matters. Sophia laughed bitterly. Right, because this is all just business to you. It is business, Damien said, but his voice lacked conviction. That was always the deal. Then why does it feel like more? The question slipped out before Sophia could stop it, hanging in the air between them like a confession. Damien's eyes darkened. Sophia. No, don't. Don't say my name like that unless you mean it. She turned away, unable to look at him. Your sister is right. This is all pretend, and I'm an idiot for forgetting that. She started toward the stairs, but Damien caught her arm. You're not an idiot, and this isn't as simple as you think. Isn't it? You needed a wife. I needed money. Clean transaction, just like you said. That was before, Damien said, his grip tightening on her arm. Before what? Before I started caring about you. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. Before I started looking forward to coming home, because you'd be here. Before I started thinking about what happens when these 30 days are over. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. Damien, I know it's not part of the deal. I know it complicates everything. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just business. She turned to face him, studying his expression for any sign of deception. What she saw there made her breath catch. Vulnerability, desire, and something that looked dangerously like love. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe Victoria was wrong. Maybe men like me do fall for women like you. His free hand came up to cup her cheek. Maybe I already have. The kiss that followed was nothing like their first one at the ceremony. This was desperate, hungry, full of weeks of suppressed longing. Sophia melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as he backed her against the wall. His mouth moved from her lips to her neck, and she gasped at the sensation. We shouldn't, she whispered, but she was already pulling him closer. Probably not, he agreed against her throat. But I can't seem to care about what we should or shouldn't do anymore. They made it to his bedroom in a tangle of urgent kisses and fumbling hands. Clothes were discarded hastily, and when Damien laid her back on his bed, his eyes were reverent as they traveled over her body. Beautiful, he murmured, and for the first time, Sophia believed he meant it. What followed was passionate and tender. Nothing like the cold transaction their marriage was supposed to be. Afterward, they lay entwined in the darkness, Sophia's head on Damien's chest as his fingers traced lazy patterns on her skin. What happens now? She asked quietly. I don't know, he admitted. The inheritance comes through in 2 weeks. After that, I disappear from your life forever. That was the deal. Damien's arms tightened around her. What if I don't want you to disappear? Sophia lifted her head to look at him. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe we don't get divorced. Maybe we make this real. The words hung between them, full of possibility and terror. Sophia wanted to say yes, wanted to believe that their fairy tale could have a happy ending. But Victoria's words echoed in her mind, reminding her of the vast gulf between their worlds. I need time to think, she said finally. Damien nodded, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. Take all the time you need. But Sophia? What happened between us tonight? What's been happening between us these past weeks? That's real. Whatever else this started as, it's become something more. 2 days later, the inheritance was officially transferred to Damien's accounts, $30 billion, just as promised. He'd gotten what he needed from their arrangement, and Sophia's $5 million payment was waiting in an account with her name on it. She stood in the sunroom, looking out at the city below, trying to make the most important decision of her life. She could take the money and leave, return to her old life, but with financial security she'd never dreamed of. Or she could stay, risk her heart on a man who might grow tired of her once the novelty wore off. "The car is ready whenever you are." Damien's voice came from behind her. Sophia turned to find him watching her with an unreadable expression. He was dressed in another expensive suit, looking every inch the billionaire he was. The contrast between them had never been more apparent. "I keep thinking about what Victoria said," Sophia admitted. "About men like you and women like me." Victoria is bitter and jealous. But she's not wrong, is she? We come from completely different worlds. You're sophisticated, educated, wealthy. I'm a struggling artist from a middle-class family who can barely pay her bills. Damien stepped closer. "None of that matters to me. It matters to everyone else. Your friends, your family, your business associates. They'll always see me as the gold digger who trapped you. I don't care what they think." "But I do." Sophia's voice broke slightly. "I care because I love you, and I don't want to be the reason people look down on you." Damien's face went very still. "You love me?" "Yes," she whispered. "I love you, which is why I have to go." "That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense. If I stay, I'll always wonder if you're with me out of obligation or guilt. If I go, we can both move on with our lives." "What if I don't want to move on?" Damien's voice was fierce. "What if I want to fight for this, for us?" Sophia's resolve wavered. The intensity in his eyes, the desperation in his voice. It was everything she'd dreamed of hearing. But dreams and reality were different things. "I've made my decision," she said, though the words felt like they were being torn from her throat. "I'm taking the money and leaving." She walked past him toward the door, each step feeling like a goodbye. At the threshold, she turned back one last time. "For what it's worth, these 30 days were the best of my life. Thank you for that." Damien didn't follow her as she left, didn't call out or try to stop her. By the time she reached the car, waiting in the driveway, Sophia was crying too hard to see clearly. As the driver pulled away from the mansion, she pressed her face to the window for one last look. Damien stood silhouetted in the doorway, his hands in his pockets, watching her go. Sophia closed her eyes and tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. But as the car carried her away from the only man she'd ever truly loved, it felt like the biggest mistake of her life. 6 months later, Sophia stood in her new art gallery, putting the finishing touches on her first solo exhibition. The space was modest but elegant, funded by a portion of her settlement from Damien. She'd paid off all her debts, bought her mother a house, and still had enough left to pursue her art full-time. She should have been happy. She was financially secure, professionally successful, and free to live her life on her own terms. But every day, she thought about the man she'd left behind and wondered if she'd chosen pride over love. The gallery door chimed, and Sophia looked up to see a familiar figure enter. Damien stood in the doorway, looking just as handsome and intimidating as ever. Her heart stopped. "Hello, Sophia," he said quietly. "Damien." She could barely breathe. His name. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see your exhibition, and to ask you a question." He walked slowly through the gallery, studying her paintings with the same intensity he'd once studied her. When he stopped in front of a particular piece, a painting of two figures silhouetted against a city skyline, reaching for each other across a vast distance, his expression softened. "You painted this after you left," he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, it's beautiful. Heartbreaking, but beautiful. He turned to face her. Is this how you see us? Always reaching, never quite touching? Sophia's throat tightened. Damien, why are you here? Because I love you. Because I've spent 6 months trying to forget you and failing completely. Because I finally realized that you were wrong about us. Wrong how? You said we come from different worlds, that we don't belong together. But you're wrong. We don't come from different worlds. We created our own world together. For 30 days, we built something real and beautiful, and I was an idiot to let you walk away from it. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. It wouldn't have worked. The differences between us are exactly what make us perfect for each other, Damien interrupted. You challenge me. You ground me. You make me want to be better than I am. And I pray, that I do the same for you. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sophia's breath caught as he dropped to one knee in the middle of her gallery. Sophia Wells, will you marry me? For real this time, with no contracts or conditions or time limits. Just two people who love each other, choosing to build a life together. Sophia stared down at him, this powerful man who was making himself vulnerable for her. The ring in the box wasn't the massive diamond from their fake engagement, but a simple band with a small, perfect sapphire, her favorite stone. I don't know if I can fit into your world, she whispered. Then we'll create a new one, he said. One where struggling artists and billionaire CEOs can fall in love and live happily ever after. Sophia looked around her gallery, at the life she'd built with his money, the dreams she'd achieved because of their arrangement. None of it meant anything without him to share it with. Yes, she said, and watched as relief and joy transformed his face. Yes, I'll marry you. As Damien slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, Sophia realized that sometimes the best deals weren't the ones you negotiated, but the ones that negotiated themselves. She'd thought she was selling 30 days of her life for financial security, but instead she'd found something infinitely more valuable. She'd found love.